Welcome to Just a Cup on Believe. I'm Bryan Fetzer. Hey, this is an organic conversation with some of the world's greatest athletes, coaches, and business professionals. We're just kind of a simple conversation over a nice little cup of Joe or tea or whatever it might be this today. But today, one question I want to ask you is if you were at the top of a profession and then made a pivot and went to a startup, what would that be like? So that's what we're going to talk about today with our guest, Adam Redmond, who played in the NFL and now is one of the founders of Tully, which is an app that helps track athletic performance. And we're going to get into that and talk a little bit about it. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so I got to ask you, as a lot of people, prefer a little coffee when they get up in the morning. What's your go-to in the morning?
I'm a coffee guy for sure. So I'm an early riser. My wife says a morning person. So a whole 4 years of 6 a.m. workouts in college will do that to you, whether you want to or not. So I get up early, get my workout in, but I'm like instant cup of coffee as soon as I get up.
Do you have a certain type that you like the most?
I've tried to get into it. We went to I did a trip to Italy a few years ago, and like every other typical American came back with a taste for espresso. So I'll do that every once in a while. But no, I'm just the basic. Whatever's the quickest and easiest is probably my preferred.
I can appreciate that. There's a place when I was up in Boston. I used to go to Thinking Cup.
Yeah,
it was right down in the north end. But shoot. Every place I go, this is, Rothrock. It's in State College. I'm my wife, I think she'll kill me if I bring another one home. Because every time I travel, it's like, oh my God, that's a cool little mug. That's a cool memory spot. I remember this place. Remember that place. So
yeah, I'm with you on that for sure.
I think coffee is a go-to for so many people, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's a great part of the day. So try not to drink too much now.
Well, okay, so let's talk about Tully. Pretty interesting story with the background, because it's really an athlete app that was created by athletes, right? I mean,
yeah,
you got 3 former football players and a track and field athlete to come up with this app. And we're going to get in your back journey a little bit first, but tell me about Tully.
Yeah. So we basically, really the story of Tully is a story of me and my co-founder, Mike Mancinelli. We were roommates and teammates together at Harvard, played football together. And Mike has the engineering background, was an electrical engineer, worked in aerospace and defense, while I went and played more football in the NFL for a few years. But, really it was us coming together after my football career and after his, stint in business school. And it was, hey, we want to start a business together. Like that was really the origin. But what we were interested in was sports tech, but kind of taking a different approach to it, right? Maybe looking at things a little less with like the high end elite performance and kind of understanding like the typical athletic organization. So anything from a high school to a local, training facility or a club organization, what are those athletes doing on a daily basis? Not turning back the clock too far on ourselves, what we were doing, what we were focused on. And then try to kind of distill, all of the sports science and the performance standards, everything down into a really usable, simple version that they could actually get value from, was kind of the key for us. And it's actually been sort of we had a lot to learn, but it's been actually kind of a benefit and like a secret advantage for us is that we are building a product for athletes and we come from an athletic perspective. We don't have, master's degree in sports science and we're not kind of overcomplicating things sometimes.
Is it an app that's on on your phone that an athlete can get as much benefit as the coach or the performance?
Yeah. So what we felt like in these organizations, things are very coach driven. So it's a platform, it's a web platform that a coach or an organization uses that's very athlete facing, but it's driven by that coach, whether they're the high school strength coach or, the owner of a private facility, where they can set metrics, set workouts, really like the things, what do we care about tracking for athletes? What do we think are important? And then helping the athletes collect that data. And most importantly, just see really quick instant feedback and progress and development. So we're all about that visualization, that data. We did a little foray into velocity-based training, actually, as like an early interest for our business. And we actually built some devices, and that's a long story of kind of a pivot from that to what became Tully. But what we really loved about VBT and what I loved about it as an athlete was that instant feedback. Like there's something powerful about being under a bar and you get to see that number, and it pushes you to go faster, to move the bar faster, be more explosive. And so we took that kind of psychology and just took it to Tully. It was like, well, there's a whole database that every coach has in their Excel or these old workout cards, but no athletes ever get to see them. Maybe there's something posted once a year, or they do testing twice a year because it's such a complicated operation. Like, how can we give that feedback to those kids immediately, that same day? Like, hey, I got better today in 2, 3, 4 areas. And then also obviously have that long time horizon too, to see, hey, I've gotten better over the last 4 years, and look where kind of where I started. So that was really the philosophy. And then it was, how do we do that in a high school where they might have one iPad for everybody to use? That's the only tech they have. Or we do it in a performance facility that has force plates and Nord boards and every type of technology you could dream of. And that was where our kind of technology side had to get flexible.
Yeah, I mean, especially nowadays, everybody's instant gratification. They want something right now. They don't want to wait later. So I mean, that makes complete sense. I mean, I think it would seem to be really appealing to younger athletes.
Yeah, that's kind of our core demographic is that high school age athlete. I mean, there's athletes as young as 8 years old on our platform, and there's professional athletes on our platform. So there's some common threads for everybody, but that's really that kind of that group team training environment where you're coming in day out at your school or with your team, and that's kind of the sweet spot of development, really, where it's really powerful for athletes to see. And it's been cool for us to just learn about different athletes, get their feedback, to say, hey, I love being able to see myself get better and improve. And it's such a powerful thing for them. Even the team coaches, athletic directors, people who aren't experts, like you and other, sports performance coaches or experts in the field, like, it needs to be translated. Like, how can I understand this? What can I get out of it? And that's really what we try to be that bridge for.
Well, it seems to be a trend in the last, couple of years that athletes leave playing in professional sports, and then they go the startup route. And it just seems like you're constantly hearing about a beverage company or a tech company or something. Why do you think that has become so much like a norm now?
I mean, I think it's a kind of a 180, but it's also it sort of aligns with the way we're trained and developed, right? I mean, I think it's like this long-term goal with a lot of short-term challenges along the way, and we're very kind of focused and driven towards a goal. And there's something obvious out in front of you, right? For a business, it's square one. How do we come up with an idea? How do we launch a product? How do we either fundraise or obviously get to that mountaintop eventually? That's a lot to do with sports. And I mean, athletes, you have to have time management. You have to be focused, disciplined in your approach. And so it seems like a really natural fit. And I think also what's really shifted, at least at the pro level, is athletes aren't just athletes anymore. I mean, people are off seasons or not. Most guys aren't just kicking back and playing video games for 6 months. Like, they're taking classes, they're engaging. Guys have businesses while they're playing. For me, that was a teammate of mine in Dallas, Travis Frederick, who's a good friend of mine, all pro player, Pro Bowler, and he launched a business while he was still playing. His company, Demiplane, a platform was successful, got acquired last year. And, he's driving to team dinners and he's on his laptop, doing financial modeling. And, for me, that was like, okay, light bulb, this guy can do it. He can play at the highest level. He still has time to devote. And he seemed so kind of enriched and fulfilled by that, right? It's kind of nice to have a different angle, a different way to kind of challenge yourself and push your mind to work. So that was cool for me. I got to see that firsthand, and it made it just at least like possible for me to think about doing something like that.
That's awesome. When you start thinking about your journey itself, when somebody thinks business, they think Harvard, right? Typically, when you say Harvard, people don't say NFL or professional sports. So you got the unique experience of going to one of the best universities in the world, but then you were able to play in the NFL. Tell me about one. Let's go back to the Harvard part. How did that come about? I mean, how did you get recruited to Harvard from Ohio?
So I grew up in Ohio. Yeah, I grew up in Ohio, west side of Cleveland. I went to high school at a place called Walsh Jesuit High School near Akron, and I was a bigger kid. I was an offensive lineman. I was a solid player. I had good grades. Like I always wanted to go play college football. That was the goal. NFL was not even like on the radar, but it was sort of like, where can I go play college ball? And honestly, I kind of went through, I always say I sort of backed my way into the Harvard experience because other than seeing Legally Blonde, like Harvard wasn't a real place for me, and not even on the radar of like, that's where I might go to school.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough that I was sort of undersized and, I had some Big Ten interest, but it was all kind of like lukewarm, like, hey, you could be a preferred walk-on. But there was Harvard, and it was like, hey, Coach Murphy came and we talked about the opportunity. And what was big for me was getting on campus and meeting those players and meeting all the people. And it was like, there's nothing different here. There's no ivory towers. These are, I did a visit with a guy who went to a rival high school, and we were the same type of person, same type of guy. And he's like, it's this college, it's a college experience. So once you kind of get over that facade, it's like, it's just a normal experience. And I'm very fortunate because at 18, I couldn't have imagined, the opportunities that would give me, and, the education I'd get, the people I'd meet. You kind of take that all for granted, but I was certainly lucky to, get recruited, have the chance to go visit, realize, hey, this is actually a good fit for me. And then once you're there, it's a really unique experience of you're playing a high level of college athletics, right? I mean, you coach there, right? It's not Power Five. You're not on ESPN every single week. We had game day come one time. We had an undefeated season. That was cool. But you playing this really high level of football, you're training hard, you're competing at a high level, but you're also kind of completely independently a student, where it's almost as close to like a high school experience as you can get. Like there's no training table, there's no study table. You want a tutor, like you go hire a tutor like every other student at the university. So it was kind of this ownership that you had to have, was like, I'm going to succeed here as a student athlete, truly as true as it could possibly be. And that was huge. And that was such a big confidence boost if you can do that. And it certainly was challenging. It was difficult, but you learn time management, you learn the discipline you need to be successful. And man, it was such a formative experience for me, and really, I think, led to a lot of other successes.
I don't think a lot of people realize that kind of your era at Harvard, there's a lot of individuals that are involved in pro sports, player, front office, and stuff like that. I mean, what's that like, being involved in it, going to school, and then all of a sudden you're at the next level and you have individuals that and kind of been around?
Yeah, well, it's the same as with talking about Travis and the business side. Like that's why I'm such an advocate now for mentorship, and I try to do more with current NFL players. Like you have to know somebody, not for the connection, but you have to be able to see it and think it's real and possible. I never knew anybody who played in the NFL. Like I said, going in high school, that wasn't on the radar. The dream was college, and like the NFL was something else entirely. Like I don't know how to do that. But when I was at Harvard, we kind of were in this golden era of teams. I think we lost a handful of games the years I was there, won a bunch of championships. But what was interesting is we had this kind of NFL pipeline started, right. Which I think was, everyone knows Ryan Fitzpatrick. He was already in the league. He was a little bit older than us, but Kyle Juszczyk, who's perennial Pro Bowler, he was, I think he was the first one, maybe like 2012, 2013. And he got drafted in the 4th round, which was like mind blowing. Not that he's not a great player, but it's just that doesn't happen. And then I think every year after, we were putting guys in the NFL, and they were, whether they were drafted, undrafted, but they were being successful. Like they were making teams, they were making rosters, they were contributing. So I came a few years after that, and we already kind of had this pipeline where people were showing up. I think if I had been the first over the wall, it would have been like, this guy's an okay player. Like, you sometimes get a little bump from the people around you and the attention. And but you got to see these guys go do it. It made it real. It made it possible. And then it became like, yeah, of course, when I'm done, I'm going to go do my pro day and hopefully get a chance to play, and I'm going to go work. And it didn't seem like this outer space type of thing anymore. So yeah, it was fortunate. We had our undefeated team in 2014. 4 of those 5 starting offensive linemen played in the NFL for at least 3 years, which there's not a lot of colleges, I think, that have that stat. And I was the fourth best of four, but I was able to kind of make my way in there, and I hung around the league for a little while, so it's good.
No, I mean that's incredible. I would venture to say that's a statistic that even statistic nerds would have no idea about.
Yeah, it is surprising, especially from Harvard. And actually, the fifth guy was Mike Mancinelli, my co-founder. So he was the black sheep, but he was a lot smarter than everybody else and got to go do some engineering and work together. So yeah.
Well, we're going to take a break, and after the break, I want to talk about Dallas Tech Week, because you had a unique experience that I would venture to say not a lot of NFL players get a chance, but a little bit Harvard athletes, but probably not a whole lot of NFL players.
Yep.
You're listening to Just a Cup on Believe. Hey, we are here all the time, every single week on Believe, on Apple, on Spotify, now on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, and pass it on to other people so they can continue here. This episode is brought in part by Iron Faith Nutrition. Make sure you get a healthy, better you. Go to ironfaithnutrition.com, IRONFAITH nutrition.com. I have Adam Redmond with me this week, and Adam is 6-year NFL vet, Harvard alum, and one of the co-founders of Tully app, which Tully works in, kind of gives a little insight to an athlete, to a coach, to kind of give some real straight up experience of what they're doing from a performance side in the weight room. And Adam, you had a chance to be at Dallas Tech Week a little while ago. What was that like? Being on a stage. I mean, athletes get interviewed all the time, but when you're sitting in front of peers of a little different side, what was that kind of experience like to get in front of a bunch of people that are in the tech, the startup world? What was that like?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was a really cool experience for me. I've been, fortunate. I played here with the Cowboys. We kind of made Dallas, especially McKinney, Texas, our home, and that's where we live, and that's where we started this company. And the kind of startup ecosystem here is just blossoming. I mean, it's grown so much in the 6 or 7 years that I've lived here, and it's been such a welcoming community to us, and for us to have mentors and people to learn from in the space. And we're also kind of in this sports innovation capital right now, with right next to Frisco, where they've invested a ton to have plug and play and other groups come to town to really develop sports innovation and startups. And so I've been sort of just the benefactor of that, and our team has for the last few years. And when they had the opportunity to sort of sit up there as as a former athlete and talk about my transition and the things I've learned in the startups sphere, that was really cool. And it's always mind blowing for me when you see these industry professionals, people who've done it. What I aspire to with Tully, kind of get so excited to hear from my perspective as a former athlete. And like I said at the start of this, those parallels, there's so many parallels. Like, it's just the resilience you have to have, understanding, being able to take losses, take lumps, keep going, find solutions, find ways to be successful. So it was really cool to be up there and learn a great panel that we put together at the time, and just very fortunate.
What is something that you learned doing a startup that you didn't have any clue before?
Well, I mentioned time management, and if anybody's been around Coach Tim Murphy at Harvard, you talk about time management is like his buzzword, and you learn how. But I think, looking back, I think college is a great short-term time management trainer, right? You kind of have like a test next week, you have a game next week. You're always doing these little chunks, and that's how the NFL was. It's like you prepare week by week, and there's phases of the year, and you kind of just, okay, that's done, move on. And it's very different than to go to a whiteboard and think of an idea like Tully and be like, okay, how do we go build a really successful company? And it's like this long-term idea where there's 8, 9, 10 really good things you can do that week, and you only have time to do 1 or 2 of them. So I think that difference of time management and thinking about how valuable your time is, and not from an arrogant way of but how there's only so much you're going to get done, and prioritization is so key. It totally kind of changed my mindset. You don't have the fortune to sort of sit and and noodle around all day on some maybe idea. You have to say, like, no, this is not a priority now. We need to focus on what a priority is. And that's been a huge learning curve, just from like the business side, and been really important for us to sort of figure out. And that's where I think having a co-founder is so huge, because we're able to sort of bounce ideas off each other. And sometimes I'll bring something up that I think is, should be line item number one. And he's like, why are we talking about this? Like, put this away. Like, we got, X, Y, and Z. So, yeah, that was just a huge learning curve. And when you're thinking about these long horizon, it's different. You're thinking of 5-10 years in the future. It's a long time, but it goes quick, and there's a lot to do. And so it's just a little bit of a mindset shift for sure.
You mentioned mentorship a little bit ago. Do you have a mentor in specifically in the startup business, or just a mentor overall?
I think I've had dozens of mentors across. I'm the type of person who I sort of attach myself to people, and I try to have conversations, have meetings. I mean, you and I, we met because I was like, somebody mentioned Bryan Fetzer and was like, you should talk to this guy and he can be helpful. And I'm kind of always trying to pick and choose. No, I mean, a lot of my mentors are peers. Like I said, Travis Frederick. I mean, Mike Mancinelli, my co-founder, in a sense, is a mentor. He went to business school. He's taught me a lot, as much as I've been building this business with him along the way. And then there's a dozen or so folks here in the Dallas startup ecosystem that I've leaned on a lot. But no, I think it's having people around you that not only can speak knowledgeably about where you're at, give you advice, but it's mostly just to have somebody kind of commiserate with, and who understands what you're going through and understands the challenges you're facing. I think it's been so important, and is kind of invaluable.
What is something, just making a shift back to the NFL, because you mentioned, Frederick. What's something you learned or you got to experience in the NFL that you didn't think you would have?
I mean, there's a lot of things, there. Honestly, I think you kind of go into such a blank canvas of understanding. I mean, especially coming from the Ivy League, like it's a totally different world. I mean, you go from, for me, I was a bigger guy, I was a good player. Like, I was physically just better than a lot of people you play, just speaking frankly. And then you turn it over to, I mean, going into like first training camp with the Colts, and there's, a 33-year-old, 310-pound defensive lineman like you're up against, right? And it's just a different world. And everyone says that, I know, but it's so true. And you sort of have to just catch up to that reality. But I think what I realized was, the value of understanding your role. Number one, like finding a role, understanding your role, like what are you good at, being really honest about what you're good at, what you're not good at. And then never being kind of too complacent to like continue learning. So what I really learned and got to see firsthand. So I played 6 years. I was on, a member of 5 different teams over those 6 years. And most of that was like with the Cowboys, but, I was able to sort of play with these great players in different places. I had different coaches, and that was, again, invaluable, because I was able to, some people see that as a negative, you're balancing teams, but I was able to pick and choose and kind of build up your tool belt. So having that exposure and that like a diversity of opinion was so powerful and valuable for me, because it's like coaching or teaching, like there's not a one size fits all. Like, I've had great coaches, but maybe only 30-40% of what they're teaching me is going to work for me, or I need to adapt. So I could take what I learned from this coach or what I learned from this player. Like, again, back to Travis, back to Zach Martin. I came to Dallas as sort of like an okay player, but when I saw how they prepared, how they thought about the game, how they, challenged themselves with their hand placement and the biomechanics and that understanding, it just totally took me to another level of understanding, and again, extended my career another few years. So when you think of all these guys coming in, now the draft's coming up, and you think everyone rates them as these finished products, and they see them as like, we're going to project what this guy's going to be in 10 years. That hasn't been decided yet. That's going to be decided when they show up and what they learn from their teammates, from their coaches, what they're exposed to. It's so important. It's so valuable. And I think even the greatest players would say they're lucky that they ended up in that position with that coach, with those teammates, like it all adds up to success on the field, and you can't take that for granted. So, I just got really comfortable with learning and trying to pick pieces from other people.
Is there a play or somebody that you went against that you were like, wow, like I can see why they're that good?
Yeah, I mean, the old coming to the NFL moment for me was, a few honestly, but I remember in training camp when I was with the Colts and I was still, a practice squad guy trying to find my way, but I was getting an opportunity to play, and we did like a joint practice against the Lions at the time, and Haloti Ngata was a nose tackle for the Lions, and again, he was in like sort of the tail end of his career, but this guy is, I mean, 2 of me wide, like the strongest, and just getting up there and like expecting myself to try to block him, let alone other people expecting me to, was just like a mind-blowing thing. So that was a big wake-up call of like, well, I have a lot of work to do. But also then when I was in Dallas, I got to play, and I was mostly in a backup role, but I played. We were at Philly on a Sunday night game, and Fletcher Cox was their 3-tech D lineman forever. Again, just a different type of player, type of physical being. So lining up against him, loud environment. I mean, it was such a cool experience. I had a lot of those, like, those road games and night games, and kind of you feel the world against you. Those are really cool moments that I'll never forget. Not fun playing against those guys, but now looking back, I'm glad I got the experience.
I'm going to give you 5 real quick questions, and I want you just to answer with one word as quick as you can.
Sure.
Favorite NFL stadium?
Philly, honestly. I hate the Eagles, but Philly.
Go-to spot in Cambridge, Massachusetts?
There's a little market deli around the corner from the main square. They got some great sandwiches there. That was my go-to.
What house were you in?
I was in Courier, out in the quad.
What favorite pastime outside of playing?
I'm a big music fan, so I dabble in playing bad guitar and bad piano and singing off key. So that's kind of my pastime.
Where'd you and your wife meet?
We met in high school. We went to high school together.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I figure you kind of take these questions, you kind of throw them out there, so you catch you off guard a little bit.
Yeah.
Adam, my last question for you as we kind of wrap up is advice. You talked about mentorship, and you talked, about how you've continued to learn. But what if there's advice that you could give the younger you, you in high school or you in college, wherever it might be, what advice would that be?
Honestly, I think it's honestly, I never saw myself, and I still don't. I don't ever see myself as a confident person, right? As weird as that sounds, confidence never came easy to me. And I sort of hid behind that a little bit. I lacked confidence, and I think limited myself a lot in high school, college, even professionally, and trying not to now. But it's sort of what I learned over my years was confidence really is something that you can develop through kind of your work ethic and your drive. And so that was sort of the mindset change for me. Became, what, I don't have like off the bus confidence that I'm the biggest, baddest guy here and I'm going to dominate. But I know based on how I worked, the training I put in, once you kind of get over that hump and you put in that work, it's amazing kind of the power you feel from that of like, I know I've been here, I've done this before. And so I think that was one of those things it took a long time to click for me. So I wish, nobody's going to see it if you don't see it yourself. Nobody's going to believe in you if you're not believing in yourself. And I kind of cowered from some opportunities because I was a little less confident. And so just really working to develop that to this point, it's still something I battle with. But especially for young players, young athletes, got to believe that you're there for a reason. You're supposed to be there. Even now in business, we have to believe that Tully's worth it, and we should be here and we should be successful. Because otherwise, how are you supposed to sell it and develop it? So
I love it. That's so true. So true. And spoken from somebody that went to Harvard, played in the NFL, started a company. I think that resonates with a lot of people that they can appreciate you saying that. So how does somebody find out more about Tully?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Instagram, on X, at Tully Tracking are those handles, and then our website here below at tully.app. We're out there in high schools, we're out there in facilities across the country. We're growing our footprint. So any youth coaches, youth organizations, athletes themselves are interested in learning more. I encourage you to check those out. And we're really excited about where we're heading and making more of an impact.
Awesome. Adam, thank you for joining us on Just a Cup. Hey, make sure you like, subscribe, and share so we can continue to grow on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, really wherever you get your podcasts from, and also at believe.com. Adam Redmond, my guest today, tully.app. And Adam, was great having you. We look forward to having more shows and having you on, seeing success a little bit even further.
Thanks, Bryan. I appreciate it. Always great seeing you.
Have a great one, folks. God bless.